Unairu. I have no idea how people are going to pronounce this name, but either way, Unairu is another focus school that has received quite a lot of changes in the Angels of Zariman update. Here we are in the simulacrum with the operator, and we're also going to be using Excalibur Umbra for most of our demonstrations. So Unairu is essentially now a focus tree that is pretty much specializing in operator-centric gameplay. Let me explain. This is the Unairu Focus tree. So we'll first go through the two main passives that come from Unairu, and then we'll go through each particular branch bit by bit. The first one is Poise. This is basically Prime Sure-Footed, but for your Warframe and your Operator. As long as you are using Unairu, you don't need to install that mod on your Warframe at all. Because as long as you're swapping between your Operator and your Warframe regularly enough, like once every 40 seconds, you will basically be immune to all slows and staggers and knockdowns, which is essentially what Prime Sure-Footed does. So that is, of course, wonderful if you need something like that. Otherwise, the other passive is Stone Skin, increasing your armor by 200 for both your Warframe and your Operator. I think this originally didn't exist for your Operator, question mark, but they may have put it back in. I don't remember if it's this or if it was maybe the Waybound. Bottom line is, if you want to have armor on your Operator, you're going to want to use Stone Skin, so that's going to be a really, really good choice. With Warframes, you're going to end up with diminishing returns depending on how much armor you're going to end up with on your Warframe. But just for a frame of reference, 200 armor just by itself is 40% damage reduction. So you're going to want to make the natural calculations when you apply that to other Warframes that have more armor already. Alright, let's have a look at the first of the trees. We're going to actually start off with Reinforced Return. So the way this works is, if your Operator goes down, you have 4 seconds where you could potentially press X with your Warframe, and then you actually jump to your Warframe, which will then jump to where your Operator was. So that could be very, very useful if you have to be way down through the map, and then you die as your Operator. And then your Warframe will go to your position, and then you will then want to try and do the next part of this particular branch, which is called Static Purge. You want to use your Warframe that's just popped up where your Operator died to kill an enemy, because if you do that, then you don't get the static transference static memes. That way, you can just swap back to your Operator instantly and then go from there if you want to go for that kind of Operator-centric approach. Let me show you what that's about. This is what I'm talking about. So we're going to quote-unquote die with our Operator, and then when I press X, I swap back to my Warframe, and then my Warframe pretty much just shows up in the position that I died. So we're going to do that again. We're going to allegedly die. So it'll be very, very useful if you happen to be really, really far in front of the map. And on top of that, I'm using Valkyrie for this particular demonstration, but we basically kill an enemy, and you may have noticed on the top right-hand corner, there is the static transference symbol that is just straight up missing. So that's going to be very, very useful. Now let's have a look at the other passive in terms of the Waybound for the Unairu School, and I am specifically referring to Last Grasp. So this is basically the Waybound that effectively makes Unairu even more useless than ever before. So the idea is, any Warframe that dies while you have the Last Grasp Waybound unlocked, you have an opportunity to bring out your Operator by pressing the Operator button. For PC, it's the number 5, but you may have changed it to something else. And then you use your Operator to revive your Warframe. It's that simple. And because it's a Waybound, this actually works with any of the other schools, so I'll demonstrate that with Maruai in a brief second. Otherwise, we also have the Vengeance passive, which is also a Waybound. Essentially, during your Last Grasp, your Operator damage will increase by a lot as you are basically trying to revive your Warframe. So your Operator is stronger and will have the ability to revive your Warframe. Let me demonstrate how this works. We're going to use Maruai. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to die to these crewmen, and then I'm going to press 5 to enter Last Grasp. I can then use my Operator abilities from Maruai, and in doing so, increasing my damage with Maruai, I basically, revive my Warframe. And then it's business as usual. Business as usual in the form of Maruai. I've talked about Maruai previously. I could potentially use my second ability to kill these crewmen, etc, etc, etc. Obviously, it doesn't have to be crewmen that you kill. You could potentially use it to kill corrupted heavy gunners if you feel confident enough. Of course, one of the changes that's coming to Operator, by the way, could make you more confident in killing corrupted heavy gunners using Maruai at level 170 in the future. we'll just have to see. But right now, I'm not using a particular arcane. That's why I decided to just use crewman as the demonstration. So the next set of passives are going to be actually not passives, they're going to be actives. Let's have a look at the first ability, and that is called Magnetic Flare. So Magnetic Flare actually produces a field in which any enemy that goes into their field, they have their shields completely disabled. So it is an area with which shields don't exist for your enemies. And on top of that, there's Magnetic Boost. The idea is you want to Void Sling out of a Magnetic Flare in order to not just refresh the duration of that magnetic flare, but you can also increase its radius by 100%. Let me show you what that looks like. Here we are against the same crewman. So what we're going to do is we're going to press our first ability, and we have a zone here where all of these crewmen don't have shields. Notice how this one has shields because they're out of the area, but if we Void Sling out of it, suddenly it now covers a much larger space, and Umbra is just popping off and killing everyone because these are unshielded crewmen. So that's of course going to be very, very useful. Just like that. Something that I seem to forget to do is to Void Sling out of it, because in doing so, you get to increase the range of the area of the zone of the anti-magnetic, or rather the anti-shield zone, by 100%, which is going to be very, very useful. I'm stuck in her wall. Now let's have a look at the second ability for Unairu, and that is called Caustic Strike. So where Magnetic Flare is the anti-shield ability, Caustic Strike is the anti-armor ability. So it's basically 100% armor strip. It's that simple. So you know the video that I did where I list every single warframe that can strip armor? Well, if you happen to be playing Unairu, you can completely disregard that video because Unairu will now strip 100% armor. Just like that. And on top of that, Unairu Wisp is part of Caustic Strike, so any enemy that you hit with the Caustic Strike will also summon a Wisp. The Wisps now seek you, as opposed to before where they would just sit there and wait for you to pick them up, so that should make it easier for you to get one. Allegedly, this doesn't work with Eidolon hunts. Someone will have to correct me in the comments if it does work now, because I don't personally use Unairu in Eidolon hunts myself. Let me show you what that's about. We're going up against Gokstat officers, the most heavily armored enemies in the game as far as I can tell. So if I press 2, these enemies no longer have armor, and they become significantly easier to kill. Just like that. Notice how these ones don't have armor, but these ones do, because this bomb, this Caustic Strike bomb, is still an AoE, so you will have to take into account AoEs and all that jazz. Unairu just basically bisected this one, almost. So we drop a bomb there, and notice how also the Unairu Wisps are coming to get me, which of course increases my overall damage by 100%, so that's going to be really, really useful. And that is why it's so much easier to kill these Gokstat officers even at level 170. Boom. So not only are we fighting unarmored Gokstat enemies, we're fighting unarmored Gokstat enemies whilst doing double damage as our operator. So that's essentially how it is. That's basically it. Really, really powerful school if you want to play some operator-centric gameplay. There are some bounties in the Zariman that are suggesting to use operator-centric gameplay. They're called the Work With Our Warframes bounties, I think. The idea is to kill somewhere between 10 and 40 enemies with your operator. So Unairu can be very, very helpful in that regard. Basically, if you're going up against shielded enemies, you want to dash into them, drop your magnetic flare zone, and then dash out of that magnetic flare zone to make it much larger and also refresh its duration. And so then any enemy that is inside that zone will no longer have their shields. Then you can basically get yourself back into the zone, and you basically want to fight those enemies in the zone. That way you will be fighting against enemies that don't have shields. And then on top of that, you probably want to be dropping your Caustic Strike whenever you can, because then you can just strip the armor off all the enemies as well, if they happen to have armor and shields. And so then you can basically double and make sure they have no defenses at all, which is going to be really, really useful. On top of that, if you happen to die as your operator, then you want to press X to bring your warframe back. And also in the 4 seconds with which your warframe is completely invulnerable, which is something that happens as part of the Unairu Focus School, you want to just kill something, because when you kill something, well then congratulations, you don't have to transfer its static. So that's going to be very, very useful. Remember, one of the changes that came with Angels of Zariman is that if you happen to have the, I think 4 times transferring static, it's an instant kill into revive, I think. So you could potentially then use last gasp as part of your reviving technique. We'll just have to see. Personally, for general purposes, I still prefer Madarine myself, but I can see a lot of people really liking something like Unairu, because even if you don't want to do operator-centric gameplay, Unairu is a super duper supportive class in the sense that you are able to completely delete all shields or completely delete all armor, which basically makes you really, really powerful against just about everyone. So that's pretty much it. Let me know about all this in the comments below. What do you think about Unairu? Is this your favorite class? Let me know in the comments. Side note, a lot of people really like Zenoric. I don't. And I've been really struggling to make a video about it, so I don't think I will. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Critical life support levels. Extraction is your best option.